again, I didn't go far with the thrash movement, certainly not as far as Scott did. But this was one band I liked.
And I love this band
Nuclear Assault. These are the ones we didn't have on vinyl. Nuclear Assault was Dan Lilker, original bass player for Anthrax. This was his band, and which is part of the reason I got into him. I was really a big SOD fan, and then this came out. Really good album. And drummer Glenn Evans was also in.
He was in TT Quick on the first EP
as well. So there was that little crossover. Definitely thrash, maybe speed as well.
Yeah, it had a little bit of hardcore vibe too.
Yeah,
more
definitely.
Crossover sound. And the vocals.
Yeah, very unique vocalist. Very, not shrill, but higher end. It's hard to describe. He has a very unique voice.
Yeah.
And very memorable.
Yeah.
It's almost like a.
It's a very high. It's very high pitched, but it's not a singing high. It's not Jeff Tate.
Yeah, it's like it's almost it's like a scraping sound or something. It's like metal on metal. It sounds like his vocal cords are made of metal and they're scraping together. That's the best I can do. It's just an interesting sound, and I always liked it. Always liked it. And this is a great album all the way through. In one of the greatest tracks, like from SOD was famous for doing their like
little short
30-second songs, and they had a tune on here called "Hang the Pope," which was just kind of an extension of that whole thing. So really cool. I liked this album a lot.
I always like the cover art too. That whole orange look with the again. We just talked about how the the nuclear war thing was a big thing.
And that was their thing. Nuclear war was Nuclear Assault's big. That was their trip.
Yeah, there's just not a bad song on here.
And they had an album prior to this called "Live, Suffer, Die." That was it was a demo, which I had first, and that's when I got this one. Good band. One of the bands that stuck with me. They stuck with me, even though I wasn't that into thrash. That's one that I continued with. That I dug.
All right, I'm gonna go with this one here. This one was definitely high on my list. We talked about Destruction. We talked about Creator. This is Sodom. Obsessed by Cruelty.
1,000 Days in Sodom.
Look at that artwork. It's just so terrible. I love it though.
It's blood and gore, but it's kind of cartoony blood.
It's stylistic. I love it. It's just look at the band members in the back, man. Skinny guys trying to be tough. It's awesome.
With big hair, even.
and the names of the band. You got Angel Ripper.
Angel Ripper.
Yeah, and you got Witch Hunter and Destructor. Yeah, I love Sodom. It's this album again.
Cool logo.
Much like the Creator and the Destruction album, it has that incredibly raw sound that some would even call, a crossover into death metal. The vocals are just very, scraping razor blades out of it in his throat. The music it's speed for speed's sake. It's brutal. It's heavy. And
I really dig the logo. I think that's a very stylistic.
I always like the logo too. Yeah.
But do you remember a few years ago the patches?
Yes.
And remember the Wodos patch? There was a patch getting sold, and it was a Sodom patch upside down. But you couldn't tell the difference. Obviously, the guy who was selling it didn't know who they
didn't
were.
know. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I love this album. I can't remember. I think this is their first full-length album. They had an album that came out before this. I think it was just an EP though.
But was one with the guy with the shroud on, like the hooded guy. Was that their first one?
No, I don't think so. I have to look.
Okay.
Let's see. Anyhow, you got Brandish, Deceptor, Equinox, After the Deluge, Obsessed by Cruelty. Pretenders to the Throne, Witchhammer. Oh, then the last song. I always like the name of that one. There you go.
Volcanic Slut. I don't even know how does a slut reach the level of volcanic? Is it like she has huge mounds or? But I hope they're not erupting. Volcanic Slut.
Oh, I always thought that was hilarious.
That's the best.
Anyhow, I love Creator. I love Destruction, but in this year, I'd put Sodom at the top of the list. I just think they're freaking awesome. This probably, I think it was pretty close to in my top 10 list, but it didn't make Randy's top 10 list, so it didn't quite make the top 10.
There's a poem on the back here. The soul that pines for eternity shall outspan death, you dweller of the twilight void, come Sodom. Awesome. I love heavy metal poetry.
This is actually an original release. This is a Metal Blade pressing. I think the original ones were on Combat. And Europe, and then they were on Metal Blade here. So
Combat was a pretty cool label. All right, this would have been album number 3 for this band.
And this is another one that I think
they departed a bit from their shock metal roots and their nastiness. Wasp. Focus is training more on Blackie, although his second album too, it's becoming like Blackie Lawless and Wasp. Sound was a lot different. I remember the single off here, 95 Nasty.
Yep.
Was the big one. And there's a couple of really cool covers on here too. They did a cover of I Don't Need No Doctor, Humble Pie version of the Ray Charles song. And they also Easy Livin' by Uriah Heep, another cover on here. Still had that Wasp sound. It was a bit more palatable than
I think it was
first
cleaner
one.
sounding. I don't know if it was a songwriter or production. But.
Maybe. And definitely the look, definitely toned down from the blood and guts and leather and spikes to,
to Blackie and animal spandex,
yeah, with big hair. And just the presentation did not thrill me, so I didn't grab it. It didn't really. The music didn't grab me either. But then again, Last Command wasn't a big one for me either until later. And like with Wasp, sometimes the band will put out an album that you think is even worse than some of their other stuff, and you go back and revisit it and find out maybe it wasn't as bad as you thought it was.
Several of these albums that I've shown are like that.
Yeah, and Wasp was one of those bands I did that with. So, good band, still decent stuff, but definitely infected by the hair metal bug.
Oh yeah. Second album for these guys, Metal Blade. This is Hallows Eve, Death and Insanity. This would make my top 10 for that year. I played this album to death when it came out. I know most people prefer their first album, but this is the album I discovered them on, and I just played it to death, and I still love it today. It was a themed album. It wasn't a story.
Not a concept album?
Not a concept album, but a themed album.
Okay.
So all the songs were about death.
Okay.
So you're going to get the name Death quite a bit in here.
Death and Insanity is the title?
Yep.
Okay.
So you get DIY, Death in Effect. DIY
or
D-I-E.
Sorry. Oh, okay.
Attack of the Iguana, which is an awesome instrumental song.
And if you've ever been attacked by an iguana, you know it usually is fatal.
Death and Insanity, the title track. I can't even say the song name without the chorus coming into my head. It's just one of those, raise your fists and chant along. Lethal Tendencies, Goblet of Gore. Obituary, which was another instrumental and a great song. Plea of the Aged and Suicide. So, all the songs were based around the whole thing of death. And you hear the word death in there a lot. And I actually, when I first did my website, No Light to Middle, back in 1999 or so, this is one of the albums I have reviewed on there. And
did you count the number of times they said death?
I said something about it in my review, about how many times they were like death. And actually, I don't remember which guy it was in the band, but one of the guys in the band actually contacted me. He's like, in not so many words, like, "You're an idiot, dude. The album is about death." he wasn't being a prick, or anything. He was just, but I actually didn't realize that the whole album was centered around that theme.
Well, sure, you can have an album that's about death, but you don't have to say the word death in every song. That's called poetry.
But the two of the, side one, Death and Insanity was the name of the song. Side
Right.
2, DIE, Death in Effect. Yeah.
They can't all be Volcanic Slut, can they?
No.
Nothing. I have to hear that song now. I have to hear Volcanic Slut.
I think that Sodom album is as good as the early Voivod stuff. It's that good to me.
Now I really need to hear it.
So it's just that rawness, that...
What's cool is when we do this, even the stuff that you talk about that I have no clue about, you make me want to hear it. I definitely want to check out some of that stuff after we talk about it.
Anyhow, great album. Hallows Eve. They put out 3 albums in the 80s. All 3 I think are great. I don't know if they split, but they were gone for a long time. They come back and they put out other albums since, and they're worthy of checking out. But nothing tops their first 3 albums in my opinion. So this is the last one actually, and this one
is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Before we get into our top 15, are we going to
yeah.
take a break before we do that?
Yeah, we'll take a break.
I could use one.
Yep. And this album will probably shock a lot of people that it's not in the top 15.
Yes, although I would not have put it in the top 15.
I wasn't in mine either, and there's a reason for it.
Yeah, for sure. Slayer, Rain in Blood, which it not being in the top 5 is probably blasphemy to a lot of metalheads.
Yeah, if you ever see any of the lists, like, there's been tons of lists in magazines and websites over the years.
It's always there.
Top 10 thrash metal releases, and this one's usually at number 1 or 2.
Yeah. Well, and I say this contains my favorite all-time Slayer track, Angel of Death.
Angel of Death is brilliant.
I don't think Angel of Death. I don't think they ever outdid Angel of Death. What a great friggin' song.
And then the last song,
Rain and Blood.
Rain and Blood with the intro song right before it. Postmortem. Those two songs together, the album is perfect to bookend it.
Yep. And this has a great run-out track into the black area of a lightning strike, which is always. It was a cut that I'd never really seen on an album before. I've seen a lot of those people playing with the out track where like it skips forever or whatever. But I never saw one that ran all the way through it with one sound. So that was kind of cool. It definitely is great thrash stuff. The tracks on here, there's not. It's funny because, like you talked about, the bookends are the longest tracks on here, clocking in at just over 40 minutes. Not even 4 minutes each. All the rest of them, not one of them is over 3 minutes long.
And the whole album as a whole is barely an EP.
Yeah, it's a very short.
We talked about the eight song Hyrax album being an EP. Yet this one's considered a full-length album.
Yeah, it's got 10 tracks on it. They're just really short tracks. So definitely, that's a bit of a departure for Slayer.
See, for me though, the two albums that preceded this, I loved them, and this to me was just like.
Show No Mercy, Hell Awaits.
Hell Awaits,
This is album 3?
Album 3.
Oh, Live Undead. That's why I get confused, because that was in there too.
Yep. And I love those EPs they released.
I'll take Hell Awaits over pretty much anything Slayer's ever done.
Yep, same here.
That was my favorite.
That's one of the things we definitely agree on.
Finding the Chapel. Can't forget that one. That was an EP, but damn, that was a strong EP.
Yep.
That was a good one. So yeah, Raining Blood, it's at the top of the heap as far as all the other stuff we put in. But didn't quite eke into the top 15, which basically is going to consist of Scott's top 10 through 6 and my top 10 through 6 because we couldn't agree on that one. And then the top 5 we definitely agreed on, and it was a strong one.
So that's it for this. That's what 40 albums or so
at least.
Yeah. So we'll get into the top 10 after that. It'll be a new video. So that's it for this one.
Yep.
Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below. We'll both try and get back to you as you comment, and appreciate y'all watching.
And stay Trog.
God bless. Stay strong.